A beautiful morning to you watching this program, Sunrise Daily. Thank you for staying tuned. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
And it's the 23rd day in the month of January. Some say the month is fast. Some say it's slow. What do I think for you? Good morning and welcome. I'm Akande. It's a Thursday morning.
Indeed it is, Ayo. It does feel sometimes like this week has taken its time. I think this is when January does begin to really stretch. But while it is 27 degrees here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, the place we're taking you to now, which is Gusau, the capital of Zamfara State, we're going to be showing you the Gusau Dam. Yes, we understand this dam is situated right there on the Sokoto River. For those who know, Zamfara was taken out, was one of the states carved out of the old Sokoto state, and it's now standing on its own in its own right as Zamfara state. But this dam is in Gusau, and interestingly, it's called the Gusau Dam. And not a lot can be gleaned, will I say, off the internet about, you know, when this dam was built, for instance. We might need to ask the historians in Zamfara for that. But we do know that this dam was in the news sometime in 2006 when it collapsed and killed about 40 people. Since 2007, it's been repaired and is still doing its work of providing water to the city of Gusau, surrounding communities, and making sure that there is irrigation, there's water for irrigation for farming activities in the capital city of Gusau and the surrounding areas in Zamfara State. Ayo.
I'm tempted, Mark, to go into the politics and the economy of it, but I just reminded myself right now that the objective of bringing this skyline is just for you to savor the beauty of Nigeria, because we could go into on and on into all of it. But this terrain is just a lush beauty. And you know, there's something that we always want to highlight, Mark, every time we bring up a skyline, and that is the fact that there is a humongous, tremendous potential for the tourism industry in Nigeria. And every site that will bring you on this segment of the program Sunrise Daily, Monday to Friday, is to highlight these potential and the things that can come out of it. Look at this beautiful lush place that you have seen, and look at this Gusau Dam. Around most of the infrastructure that we have brought to you, both the natural ones and the ones that have been built, they have tremendous tourism potential all around of them. And a dam such as this is just one of such. It has its capacity to produce electricity. It has its capacity to do so many things for so many people. Well, do we hear that the dam was insufficient to meet local needs in times of drought? But of course, after the reconstruction in 2006, a lot has happened as a result and around of it. So please enjoy the beauty of Gusau in Zamfara State, sitting on Sokoto River. That's a little of a, should I say, collaboration, Maokwe, Gusau Dam in Zamfara State, sitting on Sokoto River.
No man is an island. And speaking of people not being island, I think that that's what the students of UCH are impressing upon authorities. You know, that look, they do not want to be cut off from the rest of the world, given what is currently happening in their institutions. So I would really like to focus a little more on that. We have to come back to the reality that is our lives sometimes as Nigerians, and sometimes it's not always a happy reality, sadly. Looking at what is happening in UCH, where the students, you know, took to the streets, the medical students took to the streets to protest and draw the attention of the authorities to their plight. They have not had electricity now for upwards of 82 days. Yes, 82 days, they're still counting. I'm really trying to imagine a medical establishment, you know, without electricity. What are they supposed to be doing? This is a teaching hospital. And if I will, you know, confirm this, I think it's the oldest teaching hospital in Nigeria. Very prestigious institution, been there for years. We understand that as a result of debts owed the power holding company in that particular area, they have been cut off from the grid and have not been supplied electricity for over 2 months. And the students are now lending their voices and saying this is totally unacceptable. They want something to be done as soon as possible. I think we can listen to the demands of the students.
The blackout has lingered for over 82 days now, and for over 2 months there's been no light at University College Hospital, which has affected the livelihood of our students. People cannot function normally. You understand what you need light for, especially for students who need to study and do a whole lot of things. So the lack of electricity here is why we're out on the street today. Our demand is, number one, immediate restoration of light to University College Hospital and all hospitals in Nigeria who are currently facing the same blackout. Yes. Number two, the implementation of the 50% discount of tariff announced by the Ministry of Power last year in August. And number three, the reform of the health sector in Nigeria.
The executive governor for your state, Engineer Seyi Makinde, has done a lot about electricity. He has just commissioned the IPPS electricity that will augment what we have on ground. I know that one will go a very long way, which I've given them an assurance that they know the governor we have. He doesn't want anybody to suffer even for a second, and that this prayer will surely get to the SLSC. He will surely know what to do about it.
Just a few days ago that we saw on the front page, it was in the news, even Channels TV, had that story, where the medical sector practitioners were saying, I don't know for which particular institution, they were saying that, look, the way we are going about it, in 2 months, our hospitals will be empty because all health officials would leave. They would no longer be there because of the Jackpot syndrome. I understand that's in the dictionary, by the way. So now this, also in Abuja, Makwe, is aware of this, that the medical practitioners there have called a 3-day warning strike after a 3-week ultimatum given to the FCT management that, look, you need to do something about the hospitals. But this is happening at UCH. Now, UCH was founded, Makwe, in 1952. It was a resolve of the university at the time, University College at the time, to institute what they call a faculty of medicine, and that is what it became. It was so good back in time, the University College Hospital, that people came from Canada, from different parts of the world, to give birth to their children here in Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. That same university is the one in which students are protesting now. From time to time, when we bring you Skyline and a number of other issues, we are talking about protecting the infrastructure, the history that we have, the architecture, the monuments that we have. The University College Ibadan, University College Hospital Ibadan, is definitely one of those. And I think I don't even know what word to use to imagine that we're talking about this concerning the University College Hospital. From time to time, we've had to engage students saying that they are studying computer science. And the question that I ask from time to time, even though jokingly, is, did you use computer to study computer engineering or computer science? Now, hospitals, University College Hospital students are protesting almost 3 months of power outage. Who should be addressing this? Is that a federal university or a state university? How does that really matter to the students? As far as they are concerned, government is government. Thankfully, we hear that the Oyo State government is doing something about it. How effective that will be in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term, I guess this is a call to action for everyone. We definitely will be following up. In the meantime, let's take a short break. There are other issues to address.
The Minister of Aviation, alongside a team of officials from the ministry, appear before the National Assembly Joint Committee on Aviation for the 2024 Performance Appraisal and 2025 Budget Defense Session.
In your own opinion,
The Abuja second runway project embroiled in controversies and delays since former President Obasanjo's administration is again revived.
we've been talking about second runway since when we came into the 9th Senate. That issue has been there.
This is one of the larger issues in Nigeria of not executing such projects on time. I think the 9th Assembly, there was a small provision and there was an actual release. The total sum, just to make it open, at that time was 90 billion. Lo and behold, as I speak with you now, the contractors have left the site. The variation from 90 billion, they are proposing 532 billion. I will not accept it. The option I have is to cancel the contract. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't want to say, but the option I have now is that we have to invite fresh bids because they cannot hold us to ransom.
The questions persisted as other lawmakers highlighted additional critical areas.
I don't see why we need an aerospace university. Abuja University is there badly funded. We could have an aerospace and aviation department there.
I think it's just a matter of perspective as to whether we can be in complete control as an aviation ministry to develop the courses we think will develop the aviation ecosystem in Nigeria.
Separately, the nation's growing debt profile is a nodal point as the Director General appears before a joint committee on foreign and local debts.
What is the total debt of the country?
As at September 30th, the debt stock in Naira terms was 142 trillion Naira. So that includes the federal government, the 36 states and the federal capital territory. But I also like to add that when you put all the 36 states and the federal capital territory together, they account for only about 10% of that figure. So it means we should be looking at each other here and know that we own most of Nigeria's public debt.
In the meantime, the Senate Committee on Appropriations have begun the critical task of receiving and compiling reports of the various committees. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Business sector, there are always outlooks to be done for the year 2025. And for those who have done outlooks for us so far this year, they've been full of optimism. They believe that the worst is behind us in terms of all of the increments that we have seen and the spiraling inflation which we have witnessed. They think that this year we might begin to see inflation taper down. It's unclear just how much effect the new increase in tariff for telecom companies, especially for telecom services, will have on inflation. We'll wait to see just what that will be. But most people generally say, oh, well, it does look like this will be the year of recovery. What we haven't really taken into cognizance is our debt profile. And if what let's say Madam DMO, Madam Patience Oniha, said yesterday at the budget defense session, which is still going on at the National Assembly, is anything to go by, it is very clear that we need to pay some attention to our growing debt profile. And that's what we intend to do on this program this morning. Joining us to take a look at that is Mr. Peter Ame, who's the National Secretary, Coalition of United Political Parties. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily, and Happy New Year to you. It's still January, so that's still very much in order.
Good morning.
Yes, but is it really going to be a Happy New Year? Are you very optimistic that this year will be happy indeed for Nigerians?
For me, when I look at the budget, I have to take my, put into proper perspective and take it from a context which I want to drive this point this morning. You look, for me, I see the budget as misaligned,
allocation of resources and is the recipe for underdevelopment and debt servicing. When you have a budget of 49 trillion naira, you're going to be using 16 trillion, over 16 trillion to service, for debt servicing, which is about 32% of the budget, 14 trillion for recurrent expenditure, and then you have 13 trillion for capital expenditure. Then you also have a problem because the Minister of Finance was at the National Assembly and said that the capital expenditure for the 2024 budget was underperformed so badly that it was within 25% performance.
That is 2024.
2024.
Yeah.
So when you now look at 2025 to now, that is about 13 trillion for capital expenditure. Are we expecting them to be able to do better when we have about 16 trillion naira to be used for debt servicing? That covers about 32%. And the problem we have with our debt service is just like what the Minister of Aviation has said. When you have a budget within a short period of time and they tell you that variation is from 90 billion to 500 something billion naira. This budget procurement process that is not transparent, just like the EFCC has said, that constitutes the major part of our corruption when it comes to our budget process and implementation process. We need to be able to have a system that is transparent like it used to be. Like people can freely bid. Nigerians will know the worth of the bidding and then be able to manage the process. I don't think this budget can take us out of the woods, because if it's not properly managed and if our debt burden remains so huge and we take money, because if we are getting money and we're getting loans from all the world or maybe local investment, it has to be directed properly to investment that will regenerate, that will help the Nigerian populace to be able to have better life, not investment that continue with repeated line items in the budget when presidency and government agencies buy cars year in year out and they buy kitchen utensils year in year out, and this repeated item is adding so much burden to our budget process. We need to have a budget process that we have a direct impact on the life of the people.
Is it so much so that we haven't really paid attention to the budget, or that we still haven't fully absorbed the impact, the ramifications of what we saw, the floating of the naira, let's say of the dollar now, and then also the increments we have seen in subsidy removal, and a number of other, even for electricity, subsidy was also taken away. So is it that we haven't really taken, because I'm looking at a statement here from Nigeria's debt management office, and they are saying that part of the reason why our debt profile seems to be looking so humongous now is basically because of the devaluation of the naira. And they have even taken a very modest figure, to translate debts that are denominated in USD to naira. They're using, I think, the base figure, the rate they're using is 1,330 naira, which is far from what the current exchange rate is currently saying.
You see, what government agencies are doing, I saw a video by the tax review reform committee or something, who was also pushing the same narrative that it was the devaluation of the naira that led to the current inflation and current financial crisis that Nigeria has today. It's not true.
But isn't that really the situation?
No, it's not the situation. When the president came on board, there's a process you have to evaluate the kind of policies you want to implement. You have to look at the overall impact it will have on the economy and the people and on the workplace. See, when the president came on board without structural plan, without any plan to be able to have a foundation for the removal of fuel subsidy, and impromptly, irrationally, without any committee to cushion the effect of the removal, he removed the fuel subsidy. You can bear me witness that the price of PMS per liter increased that same day, and the cost of transportation from Nyanya to Central area increased by over 300%. So when you have that cost of transportation being increased, one thing that transportation does is that it carries goods and services, and for that it increases the burden to the common man. You can't have a person who you say is earning 70,000 as minimum wage today. We have workers that comes to work and say that he will survive based on that something, because the government is not looking at the cost of transportation. If the government had taken the approach of 2012, like providing buses for each of the state, maybe 100 buses, to be able to cushion the effect of whatever policy that will come with this subsidy removal, won't be in this mess. It's so deep. That's the truth. The truth is that transportation cost that was not mitigated, that was nothing was done to assist the general masses on how this fuel subsidy removal will have direct impact on the economy was a major fall for us. Nobody can give you another alternative definition, because what government want to do is to try to create a narrative that help to be able to put them in good light. You can't have, when the government came into about 21 months ago, we had a debt of 37 trillion or so. Today our debt has jumped to 142 trillion naira. What can the Nigerians say on the street today that this investment was used to better the lives of our people? What have we done? Look, people are trying to look.
So let me get you correctly here. What you're saying is that you don't think that this has anything to do with devaluation of the naira. You think it has more to do with fuel subsidy removal.
I think
is that correct?
Yes, more.
But some people will say, but you're saying the same thing. Yeah, fuel subsidy was taken away. We saw the immediate impact of that. Increased prices and costs of transportation, which of course has
eventually devalued
which also had an impact on the cost of fuel and I beg your pardon, goods and services, more or less. And then you now saw, a devaluation of the naira for a country that relies mainly on imports, imported goods. A lot of the things which we well, I don't want to say eat now.
we use in this country.
A lot of things we use in the country are imported, and if the dollar has been devalued, I beg your pardon, the naira has been devalued against the dollar, the effect was not something that was going to be something we saw overnight.
I'm not saying that there was no effect at all, but what I'm saying is that for the government to try to now start to drive a narrative that is solely for that purpose that we are in this current situation.
No. So I don't think that is solely. They have said that it is solely.
They have emphasis. They have not talked about. They are deliberate to talk about first.
Is that the debt profile of the country was said to have shot up as a result of this devaluation of the naira, because when you exchange the debt valued in dollars to naira using the new exchange rate, you certainly will see an increase.
I agree with that point, but I'm trying to make generally the cost of our economic woes. Yes, I agree with that point. And the data they are showing that it has about 1,300 and something.
Yes, 1,330 naira is the exchange rate.
It's not a true data
that they have used.
They have tried to, even before getting the real information, they have tried to mitigate the process even further, because if they have used what we know that is current exchange rate, it will be higher than that. So for generally what we are talking for me is I'm trying to look at what the budget performance will look like, even with this devaluation that occur, even with the removal of fuel subsidy that occur, is that the president must prioritize spending that will help direct impact on the life of the people. If we have a monocrop economy that we have today, which we monoproduct economy that we have today, where we solely depend on one crude oil as a basic income for the country, and then we have a situation where we need to be able to check our unemployment rate and even the unemployment rate and see how we can better do that. I think there must be a direct policy direction that will be able to have proper impact on the agricultural sector, because if you want to get the shortest way out of this whole problem is agriculture. Agriculture has the shortest gestation period for any investment. So, and if the country has about 39.6 million arable land, why are we not focusing on that? Why are we not investing in it?
You're not saying enough of that. I mean, one of the things that the president spoke to at the last media chat that he had was about how he was bringing in a lot of tractors into the country. He also spoke to legacy projects which he intends to do, the Badagry to Sokoto highway, the Calabar-Lagos highway, which has caused quite a bit of controversy as well. These are some of the things that he says are the investment opportunities that he's putting in place to justify why our budget is this way.
For me, the president's policy is that they are everywhere and they are nowhere. That's the problem we're having. You talk about policy and bringing tractors and all that to improve our agricultural sector and invest more into it. It was the same president. I don't want more talk and less action. It was the same president who said that he's going to be tilling 500,000 hectares of land yearly or so, or quarterly, and he has not done one square meter. You are talking about Lagos Badagry Expressway, Lagos Calabar Expressway. We have about close to 36,000, federal roads that are not motorable. You can't even drive from here to Abuja, from here to Lokoja. You can't drive from 65 kilometers from Enugu to Oka. These are the challenges. I think the government, that's why I'm talking about, putting priority to certain things that will help. Look, from we come to Benue, how can you move? But from now to Benue, you have a very good road. That I traveled to Benue, I saw how beautiful, how smooth the road was, and it made my journey very comfortable. So if we have roads that are in deplorable conditions, that are not helping our people to move and then transport their goods and services, the federal roads that we're already aware of, why are we running into another investment that will take so many years? Look at this West Road, for instance. It has taken 20 years, nothing has been done about it. If the government wake up and say, for the South, for the benefit of the people, this is West Road is 20 years, we are going to put all our energy in this road and get it working. So I'm trying to create a project, and the problem with our governance system is that people want to do things, initiate project and then end it with them, so that they will say, I started it and ended it. Government is a continuum. You have to be able to understand that whether you do 10,000 of it today and somebody does another 10,000, is all for the betterment of the people, to have a better life for the people. It is not about legacy project for you. It's about legacy project for the benefit of the masses. If it's not affecting the masses, if it's a project that is elitist in nature and is not going to trickle down to help the people to have a better, comfortable life, then there's a problem. I don't even think that if the government want to decongest Abuja today, why are we building new road? People can't even live in the metropolis. People working are living in the suburbs, and the suburbs are not really taken care of. Why are we not doing train station from Niger and from Lokoja and from Nasarawa, so that people can just come in and live there? And these people have very good land that people can even have access to be able to have housing built for themselves.
Now, some people will disagree with you there in terms of what is currently happening in the suburbs of Abuja. Some people will say that there's been plenty of focus. We've been seeing the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory going around and commissioning roads in the suburbs, roads that had hitherto been abandoned, but linking them up. We understand that so many area councils now can be linked up through the back roads that are being done by the Minister of the FCT. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I've seen some of them, but I know there's still a lot of work to be done.
Okay, let's go to Lagos now. I know Ayo has questions for you.
Thank you, Maokwe. And I know that we have little time with Mr. Ame this morning because of a number of other things that need to be discussed. But Mr. Ame, you are a politician, so there are those who would say, naturally, would expect that you would only be criticizing the government. But please speak to us more as the governance, policy, and development analyst that you are. What exactly is missing? You've talked about the fact that it's government after government will only take on a project and terminate it with them. But you also know that just recently, a slew of executive orders in the United States of America by President Trump has terminated quite a number of things that the previous government has done. So, there are those who will say it's neither here nor there. Well, speak to us about the fact that whether or not this rising debt profile is indeed as dangerous to us as it seems, or as you're presenting it, because there are a number of politicians, even economists in particular that we've spoken to, said that no, this is not totally, we're not totally in the woods, because even the United States of America, even the greatest nations in the world, still owe debt. So is it really as bad as it sounds, or is it that we're not paying attention to the right things?
I think I get your question. Every time we want to compare ourselves to the United States, and you can see that what Trump is trying to do is to make sure that the United States go back to production. What I've said is that people can borrow money. There's no time. Private business, government can borrow money at any time. But what I want, this money or whatever debt that we're incurring for the future generation should be able to have also a benefit on their lives when they also arrive. So I've talked about prioritizing investment as it has to do with our people. I've talked about doing the right thing and looking at how to make sure that those things that stand as obstacle to movement of the people and goods and services within the federal territory called Nigeria is done without creating more shortcut out of it. Look at our budget is our major problem. I've said it, and the National Assembly has a lot of role to play. They have also contributed to the kind of weak budgetary system that we have, because the oversight function that is given to National Assembly is very strong. I know the debt is to GDP. It's not that Nigeria can shoulder it, but we are saying that whatever we are doing with this, whatever borrowing we go into, whatever resources we generate, we cannot use 16 trillion of our money, about 32% of that resources, to be able to service debt. There was a time during Buhari time that we serviced a debt with about 90% of the revenue generated. So what we are saying is that, yes, please, can we have the kind of investment like in agriculture? Can we concentrate more on where we have?
But Mr. May, you've spoken about agriculture quite a number of times this morning. But the question that anyone will be asking you is, since 1999, the president of the day made it clear that if we do not go back to agriculture, we're in very murky clay. And government after government has sustained the same campaign. But we also know that the federal government doesn't have land. It's the states that, well, maybe except in the FCT, it's the states that have land. And one of the questions that I've repeated over time is the challenge of that collaboration between the federal government and the states, and the tremendous bureaucracy, red tape that has to get in the way. So how much of our debt profile will be addressed if this agricultural revolution we've been talking about for more than 2 decades works as expected? Can you hear me, Mr. May?
I didn't hear the last part of your statement, but the agriculture, like I said, has the shortest gestation period, and that profile will be hugely impacted upon if we have a productive agricultural sector. And we also have another problem. Look at Argentina. When the current administration came in place, they have over $12 billion in debt. $12 billion in debt. They had a very bad economy, but there are other shorter process to start. First of all, there has to be cost-cutting measures put in place so that we don't have this unnecessary spending that people are using to siphon our resources without ever delivering anything that is good for our people. We need to have a National Assembly that look at the line items and then look at it from the 2023 budget, 2024 budget, and see how these repeated line items have become woes to the development of our country. Because you cannot continue. The President of America has been sworn in today. We are not seeing the renovation of the White House. We are not seeing budgetary allocation for new vehicles. We are not seeing budgetary allocation for renovation. As we talk in our budget today, we have $4 billion for new jetties and helipad in Lagos. We have about $9.4 billion for transport.
Let's speak to the issues. I mean, if we sat down on just talking about,
if we do not cut down the cost of our governance by putting proper resources in
discordant issues. Just a second, Mr. Mayor. If we continue to talk about the discordant issues, the real issues are not going to be addressed. So let's stick to the conversation that we're having. Now, you've said that if we focus on agriculture, we will significantly reduce our debt profile as a nation. And as Madam Munir has said in that conversation that she had with the National Assembly members, that the federal and the state governments are joint owners of this debt and a number of other things that we hope to address with her in time to come. So with that debt profile, it means that the states themselves have quite some questions to answer. Now, we've also talked about the need for states to collaborate with the federal government. What is missing, and how do you think it should be handled in terms of that collaboration so that agriculture can work and we can cut down on our debt profile?
If government can also acquire land, I think the state will be willing to sell. If the state has no capacity and competence to be able to drive this opportunity that the government is putting before them, because all land resides within the authority of the state government. So for us to do this, we need to have a collaboration between the state government.
Does the federal government have to acquire lands from the states before they do the needful, or the federal government should just collaborate or partner or energize the states to do the things that they need to do?
We've done about collaboration before. If you look at our current inflation, about the pressure on our inflation that is 34.2 or 8%, I don't know exactly, but over 34%, about 70% is from food inflation. And food inflation alone is running about 40%. So government must take it as a serious effort in trying to make sure that we reinvent our economic system. We reinvent the way we generate resources. So if you have states that are not interested in agriculture, that because of the federal system that we run, which is a feeding bottle arrangement, that people must come on the 28th or 27th, lodge themselves in the hotel, get allocation, and go back and share the money, pay salaries and do, just basically pay salary and do nothing. And if you have that kind of situation, and you are a president, and you are interested in the development of this country, I don't think there's no extent that a president cannot go. When Obama came into office, the General Motors and Co were going underground. He gave them money. There could be private companies. These are private companies, are private entities. But it helps to create jobs and create development for our people. If the federal government knows people who are good with agricultural development, federal government can invest in it, because it is better for our people to live a better life with the kind of resources that come to our country and come to the federal government and put it into proper use than for us to continue to look for state governors, majority of them who are not interested in trying to help their own masses within their own community.
Are there any state governors that are not interested? Because let's not also forget this debt profile which you have talked about. I think it was Madam Oniha who also said that, state governments all of them put together own only about 10% of this profile. In other words, the federal government is the one that owns the bulk and the majority, about 90% of the debt that we're talking about here.
I've agreed with all this, but we are looking for a way out.
Yes.
We can't.
Are you looking around and seeing that there are some state governments that are not serious?
There are now. What we have about how many thousand square kilometers do we have in Niger State? Kogi alone, the whole southeast can fit into Kogi, about 20-something thousand square kilometers. So you can't say that they are serious when they are not the basket of food production. Look at what Benue has. Benue has all the varieties of mangroves in the world. And why are we not exporting them? Why are we not creating like what Lagos State has done? Food preservation and storage facility. Why are we not creating them in each of the zone? These are things that could help our country. If you go to Benue today, these oranges and mango are wasting away. We must be able to, see, when you want to build a society, when Margaret Thatcher came into office in England, he saw that the football was going to be, he invested money into it, and today we Nigerians are busy watching it. So we need to have a kind of a direct interest in what we want to achieve. We cannot have an economy that people can drive. By 2000, people can buy Tokombo cars. In the 80s, 70s, people are buying brand new cars. Now people are buying reused cars in this country. The economic system is buying and killing the middle class. If you go to communities where people are supposed to go to farm, people can't go to farm because of they are being kidnapped. So government has a responsibility to provide security, to make sure that our farmlands are safe and our ungoverned spaces are no longer ungoverned. And they have a lot of investment in that, whether they are using technology or they are using manpower, boot on ground. It will also help to make sure that between Benue, Kogi and Niger, that we try to do something urgently to put our unemployed youth to work. We have a very energetic youth who, if you give them opportunity, they will work in farms, they will be able to generate resources for themselves. It's all about getting well paid. If people are well paid, people don't care where they work. So government cannot just wait that every time we have the only employment we have. Look at the Nigerian labor ministry saying they have no statistics on the unemployment data available. So how do you develop a country without data? How do you make policy without data?
A lot of questions to ask, but your passion is undeniable. We have to thank you so much for your contributions, Mr. Peter Ame. He's the National Secretary of the Coalition of United Political Parties, CUP. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll take a break at this point, and we'll be back shortly to discuss development. And this time around, we're taking it to the northwest of the country. Please stay with us. Yes, indeed, I did say we're changing gears now, talking about development. This time around, we're focusing on the northwest region of the country. There's been a number of commissions signed into law now, development commissions, that is, signed into law. And one was signed into law late last year, in the last quarter of last year, the Northwest Development Commission. And some people will ask, what precisely is it meant to achieve? What is going to be the thrust of, the Development Commission as established by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Well, joining us right now to discuss this is Professor Ahmad Suleiman, who is the Deputy Dean, Faculty of Law at Northwest University in Kano. Prof, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
For a number of people, they think that these development commissions are now a little too many, and that this is like a proliferation. I have, so you must have, and such. It could eventually make nuisance of what it is that it's supposed to achieve. Do you see it that way, or do you think that the establishment of these commissions were absolutely necessary?
I agree with the fact that we are having so many commissions coming up, and the space is becoming overchoked. But law has its own purpose, and it must serve that purpose. And in the process of serving that purpose, law have to create institutions. So the essential thing is not to be carried away by this criticism, but to look at the law itself, look at the circumstances that brought about the law, look at why the structures, why we think it will work or why we think it will not work. For instance, every commission has its own peculiarity. If you take for instance, Niger Delta Commission, the background is known. If you take the Northeast, it's known. But if you take that of Northwest, it's a very complex situation that needs a special commission that focuses on that. So I'm not surprised when
what exactly is complex about it? Because you talked about the Niger Delta. Niger Delta Development Commission, everybody knows why it was created, yes, to try and make sure that the giz which lays the golden egg is happy, is kept happy, and there's development in that particular region. Yes. The Northeast Development Commission, some people argue that the Northeast has been ravaged by insecurity, has been ravaged by terrorism, which went on for over a decade, and the people of the area felt the impact of that. And as such, there's a need for us to have a commission to rebuild the area. Yes. What is the argument for the Northwest Development Commission?
Northwest is worse than all these regions you've said. One, we have so much poverty, and that is one of the main issues that the law raised. And then you have infrastructural deficits, and then you have so much insecurity, you have so much youth underdevelopment, so much complex. Every society, when colonialism came, all these societies have their own nature. Some picked up, some took time to pick up. Now, adjusting to this new trend, every region has its own challenge. North has so many challenges that kept it back. I've been writing on this. I'm very happy that now governance is paying attention. As far back as 2003, I think in the daily trust of weekly trust of 1st to September 2003, I wrote about this leadership deficit in northern Nigeria, where we are lacking people who look at the problem in Nigeria, problem in the north, and how to level up to those challenges. A few months later, I also wrote, remembering Mala Aminu Kano, the deficit after Aminu Kano. 200 years of Fulani Jihad, I think it was on March 10. I predicted that if the North failed to pay attention to its youth, it will lead to where we are going now. And because the North have failed to educate its youth the way other regions have educated, we ended up having so much insecurity, so much kidnapping, so much crime in the North. Sokoto, Kano, wherever you go, kidnapping, phone seizing, and all that. And then I also wrote on 1st June 2004 on terrorism and the indices in the North that will lead. They failed to do something. 15 years later, we are caught up. All these things are in daily trust. Anybody can pick up. So some of us who have been following these trends and then drawing attention to what it will lead to, and the failure to address those issues are what brought us here. So my own problem is, do we have enough people in this commission that will now address those challenges, that will see it as a special commission that has come up to see first special peculiar challenge of the North, or is it going to be business as usual? What exactly is the peculiar challenge that state governments cannot solve? Now, as far as state governments are concerned, you have politicians. The fact that politicians have failed us is where we are now. So what we are advocating is that have professionals, people who know the trend, who can focus, and that is why the law that created the commission mandated it to harness resources, to harness policies from state governments, from local governments, from individuals and communities and intellectuals and international organizations in order to focus. For instance, let me tell you, do you now look at tech security, for instance? Node has its own strength, it has its own weakness. The strength of, if you do analysis of the node, our strength is we have so much land for agriculture. Our weakness is that we are so poor in space governance. In terms of youth, we have so much population compared to all other regions. In terms of weakness, these youths are not trained, skills acquisition. So if you have a commission who is so focused, you can now harness the resources of the North right from local government level, right from state level, up to federal level. In fact, you can even try to level up with United Nations and other programs, global programs, in order to focus development to these needed sectors so that they will solve problems. Let me give you one instance. Take all these things happening in Kaduna, kidnapping, all those areas. What is there to stop a commission like this to train our jobless youth, put them in the farm, give them hectares of land, so that these areas, these places that provide a free avenue for kidnappers will now have agricultural activities going on, and therefore you are now solving, instead of pushing your resource to solving and fighting kidnapping and crime. And now you also look at the North, apart from all these resources, the North, from its background, when Kalapatan came to northern Nigeria, the North have been so far in governance under Islamic law. Islamic law also has its own resources, zakat, wakaf, and all that. You can get as good resources from community based on this local and cultural background, as good as what you can get from local government, and focus it on solving the problem of the North, because the world is going so far. I was just coming from Lagos this morning, and I noticed from my papa when I was going, I left around 5. By 5, everybody was active. Lagos was already active. I was telling my driver that our people are yet to tune up to this emergency, urgency of life, urgency of activity in life. So if you look at the North, if you look at our productivity level, this urgency in productivity is so low. And then we can't go on, because the lower it becomes, the more you have to face the consequences of an idle hand. And the more you train these youths with this commission, the more you now solve your problem. So what I was saying is not the commission that is the problem. But, and I'm saying this from experience. For instance, I think from my students, I was always trying to find a solution, and students from Kano State, Dogua, called for a conference on Almajiri conference, and I presented a paper, and then I gave this advice: let us harness local government resources, state government resources, and individual resources, create a commission, instead of what people were calling before to just completely ban Almajiri. I say no, because you are now creating a more problem. Do you know that we lobby for this law, we lobby for this legislation, but by the time this legislation came, by the time this commission set up, it became a long story. Other people took up. We didn't even know what is happening there now. So I know how in my process of lobbying for that law, I met some politicians who makes an exception. Kakale, for instance, the chairman then, who I had to interact, he was ready to even sacrifice his political ambition for this. But at the end of the day, most of us who lobby, we see what is happening now after about 2 or 1 years after that, what impact has this thing? So the issue is not the absence of this commission, but the level of seriousness of putting the right people who know the right problem, who will now channel these resources to solve the problem and not think within the box.
So, well, the commission is already here. It has come to stay. I mean, it has been signed into law by the president. Yes. And it does appear that you are already beginning to take issue with the people that have been appointed to the board. I do know that, women had a problem with the people that were appointed, because not one woman was appointed to the board of that particular commission. Do you also have any reservations about some of the people that have been appointed to the commission? Do you think that they have sufficient zeal and have shown track record from their past, from their past endeavors to be able to bring the difference, to make the difference that you think the commission can make in the northwest region of the country?
Yes, I don't have any problem with individuals in the board. My own problem is that politicians should try as much as possible to leave these such special commissions for special people. They should do as much away from it as possible. And my experience from the Almajiri Commission and all that, when you, at the end of the day, you see now politicians taking over, from my experience, it creates a lot of problem. And Northern Nigeria has its own problem, even before this commission in management, like what happened in Northern Bank of the North, like what happened in NNDC, Northern Nigerian Development is it company. So Northern Nigeria already, we have our own problem in management. So let us now find a way of using the right people that will think out of the box, harness resources, focus these resources to address this problem, these immediate problems of the North. Otherwise, the North will be a problem to us and it will be a problem to others.
So what major thing, what is the thrust? What major area would you like this commission to take a look at and make sure that they're able to deal decisively with?
This commission must find a way of using agriculture to solve unemployment. This commission must find a way of using this to provide skills, practical skills to millions of jobless Northern Nigeria. This commission must find a way of having an impact on all strata of governance we have, from local governments, state governments, and federal government, so that they come up with a program. I don't believe in just mere criticism of budget. Every budget has its own pros and cons. Let them look at the policies of federal government, state government, look at how they can harness on those policies, try to draw those resources and focus, ensure that these resources get to the needed area of impact. These things that politicians have been using to create problems should be exempted from impact by this commission. If you have serious people who are ready to fight against that, because the North, as far as the North is concerned, the North is at the brink now. Anything can happen. I've said it, I'm even tired of saying it. Remember in this, I think it was in your Kano studio, I said about 2 years ago that if government failed to do something, there's going to be crisis. About 7 or 8 months later, the whole country was in crisis about this fuel. So some of us see indices. When I saw terrorism, about 15 years before this terrorism, it is there in Daily Trust. 1st June, Daily Trust, 2004. I forecasted that we have gaps and problems in our security policy. This is what we should do. We should run away from petty policing into proactive. They failed to do. When we are facing Boko Haram in this studio, I think it was with you or with one of your producers, I argued that relying on military alone or police alone will not solve a problem. Let them add it with vigilante. When they did it, they solved a problem. So just like if we have forecasted more than 5 years and it has come to pass, I think they should pay attention to some of us who have been spending our times mental resources thinking over the problem of the country. Let them, this should be a welcome development by all Northerners, by all Northern intellectuals. Let us find a way of coming to resist political interest in this commission. Let it not be like Bank of the North. Let it not be like NNDC.
How much time are you going to give the commission to have an impact on the region?
You are pushing me into a dream, and let me dream. maybe somebody will look at and catch up with the challenge.
It's a challenge to the commission. How much time do you want to give them to be able to say?
In this commission, if you have a seriously committed leadership, and make sure that within 2 years, no northern Nigerian youths walks away jobless on the street. If he's a primary school leaver, I will train him to be a driver, push him to an area. If he's a secondary school leaver, I will train him to a skill that is compatible to his level. If it is diploma, if it is degree, and then these resources, harness them. This money we are spending on insecurity, spend them. In your last program, you were talking about allocation of land. Believe me, all governors, it's just the idea most of them don't have. But all governors have seen the consequence of insecurity. Most of them will be ready to allocate lands for agriculture. So that what is there to stop giving a loan of 10 million to an average graduate in northern Nigeria to pay back in 5 or 10 years? You are not losing this money, but you are solving a lot of problems.
Well, we'll definitely wait and see. I think it's now a game of wait and see to see, just how it is that the Northwest Development Commission will be able to set its foot on the ground. And you have said that politicians should stay away and that people should try and resist the politicians from having undue influence on this commission. That's correct, right?
Yes, I want to say it again. If it continues business as usual, like other commission, like in the Bank of the North, like NNDC, like what I'm seeing in Almaziri Commission now, is bound to fail. But if they fail, individuals can. For instance, now we are working on Umar Zakat Fund. Beyond the government, we want to use Hanes Zakat, and there are a lot of northern Nigerians, not in governance, who are now coming now for us to sit down. We are not waiting for government now. We want to see how we can push on development. So let all northerners be inquisitive. Let us be watchful. Let us not allow politicians to turn this commission into business as usual, like NNDC in Niger Delta or like other commissions.
Well, Professor Ahmad Suleiman, we have to thank you so much for your thoughts on the program this morning. He is a Deputy Dean, Faculty of Law at the Northwest University
Associate
in Kano.
Professor.
Associate Professor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take a moment at this time, and well, not really a moment. We're taking you back to the Lagos studios, but this time around to the Business Morning studios for Business Morning on Sunrise Daily with Laddie Williams.
Well, thank you, Mark, where the markets are open. Right now, let's get a check on what to expect and get you those stories that set your investing agenda today. Let's get a check on the FX market now. We see the Naira in the official market continue to experience sustained demand pressure with an FX benchmark rate that closed at about 1,557 Naira to the dollar. Weakness there, 0.27% down. Then we see a marginal drop. That's for the NFM window, 1,551 Naira, kind of like unchanged there, but to the downside. Then the CBN rate, that's up 0.13% at 1,553 Naira. That was a close for yesterday. Investors, analysts are expecting this range will continue, barring any other unexpected happening there in the FX market. Let's get a check on oil now. We see oil prices, they took a tumble in Asian trade today, marking their 6th consecutive day of losses. Brent crude futures, that's down 0.37%, $79 a barrel. Continuing that bearish sentiment we've seen, losing the $80 mark, that psychological level. US WTI crude, $75.44 a barrel, 0.51% down. Investors are watching this market to see how Trump's presidency, how that impacts. It's all about drill, baby, drill at this point, and we see prices, going lower with most of the forecasts we also see from the IEA. All right, so other stories now. The central bank is set to officially launch the Nigerian Foreign Exchange Code January 28th, following its approval by the Financial Market Regulator. In a statement, the CBN explained that the FX Code, which will serve as a vital guideline for the banking industry, is designed to ensure that authorized dealers uphold the highest professional standard and transparency when conducting FX transactions in the Nigerian foreign exchange market. The CBN emphasized that the introduction of the FX Code is part of its ongoing efforts to enhance the stability and integrity of Nigeria's FX market. Meanwhile, the Apex Bank has vowed to tackle the buying and selling of Naira notes, which has become widespread in the country. And to other matters now, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, have asked telecom operators in the country to ensure that the 50% increase in tariff recently approved by the Nigeria Communications Commission must lead to improved services for Nigerian users. In a statement the Consumer Protection Watchdog mentioned that issues such as network congestion, drop calls,
Inconsistent internet speeds, unusual data depletion, and poor customer service have remained prevalent concerns. The FCCPC also added that consumers have consistently expressed the desire for measurable improvement in quality of service before any tariff increase is implemented. And to some company news now, MTN Nigeria has rolled out a powerful campaign, Go Make a Difference, shortened as Go MAD. This initiative serves as a push for Nigerians to take strategic actions that inspire change and foster community development. The telecommunications giant says it is driving progress by giving its customers the power to rise above challenges and create something extraordinary. Our correspondent, Dare Ido, reports.
From the pawn to the king, the chessboard is set. MTN's new message is embedded in chess, the game of strategy. The Telcos' new campaign is encouraging everyone to go make a difference in their communities, families, and places of work.
At MTN, we believe in driving progress, giving our customers the power to rise above these challenges and create something extraordinary. This is the very essence of our Go Mad campaign. It is premised on the idea that MTN data gives you the power to take on the world, to do the extraordinary, and make a meaningful difference.
From humble beginnings to becoming a global change maker, Tunde Onokoya, a Nigerian chess grandmaster and founder of Chess in Slums Africa, is the face of the campaign. Is expected to sustain the campaign's momentum through community engagement.
The truth is, as long as you stay true to who you are and to your dreams, as long as you know that the gifts that you have, the talent that you have, it shouldn't just be for you alone. The moment you can take that and give it back to the world as value, the world will celebrate you for it. So today is one of those days where I'm being celebrated for my gift, but I think everyone would also get that moment. And the day you get your moment in the spotlight, you must remember that you must pay it forward for other people as well. So which is why this entire campaign says it is not enough to gain mastery. We need to use that and use it to inspire others and make a difference in people's lives.
Go Mad 2025. A round of applause for yourselves, please. Mad 2025. A round of applause for yourselves, please.
As Tunde plays with MTNers led by the CEO Carl Toriola, everyone knows that every move matters and every step is calculated.
You better show me, show me, show me.
All right. It's a hard song. Please let's watch the boards.
Through the Go Mad campaign, MTN is reminding its customers that efforts, no matter how small, can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Like in chess, deliberate and calculated moves can create real change.
All right, yeah, there you have it. Go make a difference. And I'm talking about a difference at this point. We're getting pushed back now for the approved tariff hike. That's by the NCC. Let's talk to Mr. Bismarck Urani now, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you on the show. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Laddie. Good morning to you.
Yeah, so it's still all about the tariff hike at this point. Now we're getting pushed back now from the NLC, TUC, CNG. They're rejecting the 50% tariff hike. They've described it as outrageous at this point, lamenting that it will worsen the harsh living conditions, for consumers and workers. So talk to me about this pushback. How are you seeing it?
That is to be expected. The reaction of unions and industrial relations experts is always to push back on any price increase, because the price increase actually means a reduction in disposable income of the consumers. But like we said last week and this week as well, Nigeria, the consumer is becoming a king, in the sense that if the increase is matched by an increase in productivity and output, then things get balanced out. So what are we seeing here? We are seeing cost recovery. In other words, since 2013 to date, cumulative inflation is over 150%. the providers asked for 100% and the NCC approved 50%. So 50% divided by the past 10 years comes to an average of 5% a year, right? So basically, what you've had is a 5% increase. But the solution to this problem is that there should be more periodic reviews, either upwards or downwards. And the quality of service, like you said, you just announced that the NCC and the Consumer Protection Agency is insisting on quality of service. But I want you to understand it in this context, that if if I started a call, the first few minutes have a higher tariff than the later minutes, and the call drops, then I go back again to start that call. So if in 15 minutes I had 3 drop calls, I'll find that a 15-minute call where I would have been having a tariff, marginal tariff of about 3 naira or 4 naira per minute, I'm back to the 18 naira per minute at the beginning. So you find that while in real terms, right, there's an increase in the cost per unit, in reality, effective cost per unit is almost the same. When you now look at the average revenue per user, the cost of providing that call, the capex that has been invested in that sector, you'll find that the quality of service, the increase, the coverage across the country means that, generally speaking, you might have an increase. But in any case, to start with, every cost increase there'll be pushback from the consumer because nobody wants to pay more for what it has been paying all along. Now the question is, how do we hold the providers, the MNOs, to ensure that, one, people get quality and people get value for the money? That's the key thing. So while we have met them, 50 half a loaf is better than none, 50% of the request, we now have to hold them to their word that quality would improve and that actually the service itself and the coverage across the country would improve. I think that's a key thing. But if I was to come back to discuss for a minute what is happening in the commodity space, and I think that is very, very important for this program. We have seen in the last week, even though it's what we call the January effect, we've seen a very substantial reduction in price of trading commodities. For example, beans has come down to 100,000 naira, and that was as high as 140, 150,000 before now, that in November and December. Rice is down to 105. You know, rice had gone up to 120. It's now down by 5% to 105,000 naira. Palm oil came down by 13% to 9,500. And sugar has actually come down by 5% more or less to 81,000. Onions is down by 8% to 220,000. What are we saying here? One is the planting season, so prices should actually be increasing, but we're seeing prices coming down. What are we saying here is that people are now beginning to have the full effect of an increase in other prices and a reduction in taxes and subsidies on their income. And now people are beginning to buy less and look for alternatives, substitute them matter. And that is very significant. In all of this, we've seen that the Naira depreciated to 1675. Typically, in a normal cycle, in December, the Naira appreciates because of visiting friends and relatives. It also appreciates because that's the cocoa main crop harvest. So the dollars come in. Now, we've seen that happen, but the Naira did not actually appreciate, but the Naira stopped depreciating. Now, we are beginning to see early signs of some depreciation. But the difference between this year and last year was, at this time last year, in January 2024, the interest rates were much lower and so it was in February 2024 that the Cardoso team moved in and pushed up rates for the first time at 400 basis points. So it is by February this year, that is next month, that we begin to see the base effect disappear, and you now see that the currency has stayed stable in terms of its volatility.
Okay. All right, Mr. Rani, you actually led me to my next question. I saw on the slide there about the notable price drops with most of these commodities. So looking at, is this a seasonal thing, or is this a trend we're going to see, continue in the first quarter of 2025?
Now, you see what has happened is that, let us look at what's happening to them. I want to talk about the price of petrol. First of all, the rumor that NNPC has actually increased their price to 960, it's not official. NNPC is quite capable of issuing their releases and their statement. The actual price of MRS, Hanover, and Hayden is 970 naira. And like I said during the last session, the increase of 12%, 7% of that increase has been absorbed by the Dangote refinery. Only 5%, so 5.6% was passed on to the market. What is also more interesting is that the price of crude, as you just announced that Brent is now down to 79. At the time the prices were being announced earlier on, the price of crude was $70 a barrel. It's now gone up by almost 11 or 12%. So the cost of crude, the cost of processing, the cost of refining, and the cost of transportation of this commodity to different parts of the country. And what is more interesting is that you will see, the rumor says, and you cannot rely entirely on rumors, that in Abuja, NNPC is going to be selling at 990, while in Lagos, they'll be selling at 960. We haven't got any official statement, but the Dangote refinery is using uniform pricing. In other words, the price in Warri is the same as the price in Kano, same as the price in Kaduna, same as the price in Port Harcourt. To achieve uniform pricing, the federal government in the past had what we call a Petroleum Equalization Fund, which was used to bridge these commodities across the country to ensure that you have uniform pricing. That is over. The federal government is no longer doing that. And the only people that can do it that are now the refiners themselves. So you have the modular refineries, you have the NNPC refinery, you have the Dangote refinery, which is the price leader. What Dangote refinery has done, from all the information available to us, is that they have guaranteed quality and quantity and a price across the country. Uniform pricing is very, very important to minimize inflation. And you would see that the rate of inflation will begin to taper as we go into the months of February. One, because prices are beginning to drop marginally after the December rush. And secondly, we are still or yet to see the effect of the reconstruction of the inflation basket. But there are very interesting days ahead, and we need to watch it.
Yeah, very interesting days. Definitely, we see price movements. The NNPC comes up with a price, then we see the Dangote refinery come up with another price. But I get so much to look out for.
There is competition. There is competition. Competition is good for the market. And what is more important to everybody is that 50%, more than 50% of the cost increases is being absorbed by the Dangote refinery as against in other markets. I think that's very important to bear in mind.
All right, competition, definitely what we need at this point. Thank you so much, Mr. Bezrakawani. Always great having your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we get an outlook. That's for Fintech in Nigeria. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, the fintech landscape is rapidly evolving, driven by innovation, shifting regulations, and a growing demand for accessible and inclusive financial services. In 2025, partnerships are more crucial than ever before. Let's get a sense of what to expect for this year now. Joining us is Chibuzo Mela, the head of partnership at Palmpay, joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so, looking at, we're talking a lot about financial inclusion, so far, and, data from Efina, showing bank penetration. We're seeing Lagos State, is still leading with about over 90% there, 91% penetration. That's the banking penetration by state. We have Ekiti with 77, Sokoto 22. That's data from Efina. So, looking at before now, we're seeing improvements, so far. So talk to me about, some innovation, partnerships, and trends that we can expect, in this space in 2025 for Nigeria.
Oh, thanks a lot for that, right? like you rightly pointed out, we're beginning to see a lot of innovation around, with the entrance of the fintech, we're beginning to see access to finance. The fintech are being able to demystify payments, financial services, right? Reduce the cost for people to be able to access financial services. However, what we've seen that have driven this in the last 5 years, I will continue to see that going forward, is we've seen banks go above, see that it's more of collaboration rather than competition, right? Before now, a lot of people felt, oh, these fintech guys are going to eat my pie. But it's not about that, really. It's about collaboration. Where you have your strength, right? I probably have my weakness there, and where I have strength, you probably have weaknesses there. So we've seen a lot of collaboration that has led to innovative products. Here, we've seen financial products that has gotten to the last mile. There was a time I traveled from Calabar to Ecom, and within that landmass, right, you don't see any bank, right? But with the fintech coming in to be able to get to each of those smaller businesses, we are beginning to see a lot of those guys have access to financial products without necessarily having to travel back to Calabar to open a bank account. Another thing you see is embedded finance, right? Today we are beginning to see services, right, now offer financial services. Today you're able to go enter a taxi and make payments while in that taxi. You're able to go on e-commerce side. A lot of them are beginning to have wallets to drive financial services. So you continue to see a whole lot of new use cases in embedded finance. Another part you're seeing is with collaboration, right, we're empowering a lot of MSMEs. Today you have small businesses, for example, the use case of the e-com, the Goja places where a lot of those businesses before now were restricted to cash. But today, right, we've empowered them to be able to make extra cash.
And you can't even find the cash even if you're looking for it.
Well, exactly. And then aside that, right, the last thing is we're also seeing open banking, right? And the framework from the central bank, right, also gave more rise and credence to that. So what we're seeing now is where different entities are now collaborating and going into partnership to be able to share data. But then you need to get the customer's consent to do that.
I'm talking about strengths and weaknesses. What would you say are the weaknesses of the fintechs?
We'd always look at structure, right? A lot of people will say, looking at those branches, they don't have that, right? But I don't think, we may see that as weakness, but in reality, to be able to get to the last mile, every business is you need to make money, right? So as much as possible, you need to be able to minimize your cost. So while we may look at that as though it's a weakness, but then we are reducing the cost of delivering financial services. And that's why today you can see a lot of the fintechs are able to do transfer for free, because rather than have brick and mortar branches where we've built, we have to employ people, we have to get fuel to drive businesses. We don't need to do that anymore, right? And that's why
I'd really love to see at some point to see most of these companies actually list on the stock market, so that we can actually see the financials, because I'm sure the OPEX will be so little.
Exactly. We're getting there. I'm sure in the next probably 5 years, you begin to see a lot of them in the capital market. At this time, you still try, you've gotten people that have invested heavily in building the technologies that you have now. So, they need to recoup those investments. But I'm sure within the next 5 years, you'll begin to see a lot of this fintech listed in the public market as well.
Talking about listing, that comes with heavy, regulation.
True.
So how's that looking?
In terms of the regulation, right? So what the fintechs have done, right? I'll probably just highlight 4 things. The first is we're seeing new fintechs that started with a license begin to obtain multiple licenses. Just as new products and new innovation come in, right? They need to acquire the relevant license to be able to play in that space. So a lot of them are beginning to acquire licenses to deliver more financial services to the last mile. We're also seeing a lot of them. So aside the licenses, we are seeing a lot of them invest heavily in new technologies to drive security, like the biometric, liveness check, and all of this is centered to ensure that customer data and customer information is protected. We're seeing them also invest in enhance their cyber security and data protection to ensure that data is properly encrypted, right? And in exchange of this data, right, we don't have data breach here and there, and they conform to regular regulation. We're also seeing blockchain also coming in, blockchain, where you're demystifying, decentralizing payments. So rather than have where you have to send payments straight through and have different servers authorize those transactions, we're having blockchains come in where you decentralizing it to have better uptime, right? And then the last is we're seeing automation, right? People are beginning to automate their compliance framework. Having AI and AI coming to it and machine learning to be able to improve compliance.
Right, and talking about biometrics, I've noticed trying to use some of the fintech apps now. If you're trying to send some irregular amount, then they now tell you to put up your face and maybe move this way and that. And sometimes it gets frustrating, but I guess it's good. Is it improving security?
Well, one thing you want to get is trust. You want to be sure that your money is safe, right? And we keep learning every day. There are new trends to fraud. And the CBN has done fantastically well evolving a lot of the policies that they make. And just to comply with a lot of those policies, you need to deploy new technology. So those liveliness check really is to ensure that I see a new pattern. A good example is you probably always send 10,000 naira, and all of a sudden I see 100K. I need to know, is this lady that is sending this? Right. Okay, let me see your face. And I'm matching your face against other services like the NIMC database, the BVN database. And once I'm able to match that, I know, this is Ladi. I'm not going to have problems around fraud. So it's actually to secure your funds.
But what if Ladi is held at gunpoint and he still has to show his face? Then I guess, we'll keep learning that. Or maybe if it sees the gun, then it'll stop the transaction. Exactly. All right, this is very interesting there. So, talk to me about the kind of partnerships we can see in 2025 that would actually boost financial inclusion more.
Well, so I don't think it's just 2025 and beyond, right? Yeah. So I think first certain things will drive those partnerships. We'll see a reduction in cash-based transaction first, right? And that's driven largely by evolving regulatory framework.
Because we did see the CBN fine a couple of banks in December for not making cash available at the ATM.
Exactly. Well, not cash. But how much are they able to take? The state bank also made new regulation with the fintechs as regards withdrawals at agency location, and all of these are geared towards reducing cash-based transaction and cash in your hand, right? So we would see more of those regulations come out, right? Because the CBN continues to learn and improve, but then a lot of those regulations will be centered around consumer protection, data privacy, cyber security, right? And it will drive a lot of partnership that you will see. However, this would then give rise to more collaboration. You'll see more partnership, more innovative products, because we begin to enter new market segments to be able to drive simplified payments in those particular sector, right? We'd also get to see more rise in embedded finance. We begin to see, you want to go to the train, a train station. We begin to see different use cases, right, to be able to make payments seamlessly and efficiently, right? We also get to see rise in open banking, right? A lot of NIBs, for example, are just created a sandbox, but one of the biggest challenge of open banking is the standardization of APIs. So as we go into the new year and the future, we'll begin to see more standardized API. And when we get those standardized API, what it does is it makes it seamless for you to be able to integrate with different partners. I think one other important thing is we also see the increase in the use of AI. I should be able to know, what does Ladi like? I shouldn't just sit down and think that Ladi and Chiz don't like the same thing. I shouldn't just think that the guy behind does the same thing. I should be able to say, oh, Ladi loves suits. Oh, Ladi, have you seen the suit from XYZ?
Like when the phone is listening.
Exactly. Right. We can even think that, oh, Ladi, your salary is coming very soon. I know you love to do this. Have you tried out this store? So we begin to see use of AI to be able to deliver bespoke financial services to different persons. Right. And that same AI and machine learning would also help curb a lot in terms of fraud protection and all of those things. So we see a lot.
I guess it's the year of AI again. Yeah, at this point. Thank you so much. Great having you, Chibuzo Melaz, head of partnership at Pompey. Thank you so much. All right, so there you have it. So much to expect. And talking about expectations, the markets, the trading right now, will give you a snapshot of what's playing now with most of the markets we track. That's at 1 p.m. on Business Incorporated. That's it from me on Business Morning. I hand things over to the Sunrise Daily team.
Quite a number of issues to look at this week. There's been a potpourri of sorts from international relations, what has happened in the United States, the return of the Trump, if you like to put it that way, according to Ayo. And then you also have the Vice President Shatima in Davos, and a number of other news that has happened locally here in Nigeria. The NCC has finally approved a 50% rate hike for telecom companies. So quite a number of things to look at this week, and we're looking at, like I said, the summary of the news, even though it's just a Thursday. The summary of the news this week with Mr. Laolu Akande, who is a former presidential aide. But let's start with, I'm sure what you would think is the juiciest one here, the return of the Trump. I'm sure you listened to that inaugural address on Monday, as did many Nigerians, paying attention to what is happening in the United States. How did it strike you?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, the return of Donald Trump and his kind and style of politics just sent me a message of possible redemption, that after all, we don't have a situation that cannot be cured. If the Americans felt somebody of Donald Trump should come back, it tells me very clearly that we're not dealing with what is impossible in Nigeria. That's my first take. I say, okay, so we're not the only one that think that our politicians have quite a number of issues, and that by itself is not an incurable problem. That's my first take. The second thing I see in the Donald Trump presidency is the return of it, is that there's going to be a slowdown to what I personally consider to be a perversion around gender dynamics in this world. He said on the first day in office that the United States government is going to recognize just two genders, as we've all known. That is a big deal, because when stuff happens, like somebody used to say when I was in New York, say that every mistake in America is a style in Nigeria. So when you get the American president make it very clear that, look, there are going to be two genders, that is going to slow down a lot of the confusion and a lot of the moral complications that has had to happen because of some of the things that is going on. And the third point is how I think this might affect, Nigerian relationship with America, with the U.S. Now, many people don't know that it was under the first term of President Donald Trump that we actually managed to get the Tucano jets. Our brother, President Barack Obama, when he was president, his government raised quite a lot of issues here and there that delayed the sale.
It's interesting you call him our brother.
Oh yeah, well, of course, it's our brother. We are Africans, all of us. But it was under Donald Trump who felt that, look, I mean, sell this thing to these guys, they need it. In any case, it's a business deal. So, it's a mixture. What has happened with the return of Donald Trump, and we are looking forward to a very exciting. Not only Americans are going to be getting a lot of excitement, the whole world is in for another bumpy ride with Mr. Donald Trump.
No, I guess that, people are really unsure what to expect. I mean, but he's certainly not mincing words, and he's not ambivalent about how he intends to do things. The things that he has said he wants to do, he's already started doing them. He says, illegal migrants will be deported. That exercise has already started. He said he was going to pardon those who were involved in January 16 riots. That pardon was already given, and I think over 1,500 people already been pardoned. That is causing controversy. He said he was going to revoke birthright citizenship. He has already signed an executive order to that effect. He's going to impose tariffs on China and goods coming into the United States. He's already started with that as well. So, but as you've already highlighted, the rest of the world is also looking very keenly. There are those who say, look, this is going to be a time that is beneficial to the rest of the world, because before now we've always looked to the United States to perform the role of big brother. But right now it does appear that they are under an administration that intends to look inwards and wants to do things differently inside the house first. And however it is they're dealing with the rest of the world, they want to do business with the rest of the world, which is very much what China has been doing with the rest of the world. So Why do we seem so apprehensive? It does appear that on the one hand, we don't want Big Brother telling us how to do things. But when Big Brother says, look, we're handsing off, what we want to do is business, we're still a little concerned. What exactly is the issue?
Well, the concern for me is not about the broad agenda of Mr. Trump to make America great again, or his intentions and plans to be insular. I don't have any problem with that. What I have a problem with is some of the implications of the style of his politics, the language of his politics. For instance, so he wants to ban the citizenship right of people that are born in America. Now that's an overreach, and you could say that doesn't affect Nigeria, or it does affect Nigeria, because there are a lot of Nigerians who are caught in that web. And I'm not saying that whether what it is that they are doing is right or wrong to want to go and give birth in those in the United States, but I'm saying that, look, there are certain things that even those who set up America, the founding fathers, in their wisdom, at the end of the day, if you look at it, America is an immigrant country. Okay, we know the history. So this attempt by Mr. Donald Trump, even going to the point that he's overreaching himself, is not going to not only does he go against the grain of the founding fathers and the thought that went to the very idea of America, where everybody can come in, the best of the world gathered there. Not only does it go against the grain of it, but it also sends it's a poor reflection on what many people believe America stands for. And he is so desperate about it that he's even issuing an executive order to trounce the Constitution. I don't know how he intends to survive it. 22 states, by the way,
already challenging
the thing, and I think it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. You can't just by a fiat amend the American Constitution. So my concern is not so much that he's going to compel people to do their own stuff, solve their own problems. No, it is about what might happen to the reputation of America, what might happen to the image of America. Because look, America and Americans enjoy the fact that this is the city on the hill. This is the nation of example, the greatest country.
Exactly. So I mean, you've talked about that. Even though citizenship by birth, is going to be a very controversial part, because even the Americans, I'm sure that a section of them believe that has been abused. People just find ways to come and give birth in their country, and automatically they're Americans. And I think that they believe that some parts of that particular allowance has now been abused, and maybe that's what they're trying to put a stop to. So there'll be controversy around that. Right. But in terms of other things that have now taken place, for instance, this pardon, which is granted, some people have said it is very controversial. Even members of his political party did say that, do not agree with this particular stance, especially when police officers were involved. I was reading an article, someone was talking about how, we talked about decorum in our elections. That did not happen during the elections. I mean, all manner of words were used during the elections. That particular action of pardoning people will be termed nepotism. That clearly those kind of words have not been used in those places. Now we're seeing tariff being placed on goods. They say, that will be protectionism if we're other countries, but that is not being mentioned. So do you think that America has put itself in a situation where it has created a double standard? Even the West, so to speak, is creating a double standards of sorts. What they tell developing countries and tell them that they cannot do, they are now doing because they think, this is favorable to their country.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's why in my opening statement I said that, look, after all, we shouldn't think too lowly of our politicians. If this is the way the American president is going to behave. Look, the idea of the pardons is just so corrosive and such a huge damage. As a matter of fact, there is one particular of the convict who said that she's
not accepting the pardon.
I mean, how can you?
That's interesting. A convict saying, I deserve what I got,
exactly.
I'm not accepting this pardon.
Because some of them knew what they were doing and they wanted to stand for it, they wanted to go to jail for it because they wanted to make the point, so they knew they were breaking law. Some of the people that have not been freed by the United States president actually even have, criminal records, of all kinds of fraudulent activities online and all kinds of things. I mean, you don't do, even if you wanted to do it, you could have found a way to identify the people that are not the ringleaders, people that are not really so in the front. You just gave a blanket. Look, this is a damage. Whether he understands it or not, whether Americans understand it or not, this is a damage to America's reputation. It's a very tremendous damage to America's reputation. And the only reason why, America is going to have to recover is that this man's got only 4 years.
Well, I'm looking at the fact that it does appear that this is a very delicate mix. Because on the one hand, you have hailed the fact that, he's recognized two genders. I think many Nigerians would have, when they listen to that inaugural address, they would have stood up in applause for that particular, one. To say America only recognizes two genders, male and female. However, and we also recall the fact that during our fight against terrorism, we talked about the Tucano aircraft, the one that was approved for Nigeria. So it does appear that it's a delicate mix for the rest of the world that is watching. Overall, how would you say that we should view this? Do we view this, with optimism, or would you say we should view it with cautious optimism? Okay, so depending on who is the we. Now, if you're talking about the government, the federal government. So the federal government must understand that this is a guy who is going to be involved. The heart of the deal. So if you have deals, if you present issues as a deal and you let him know how he benefits on it, it's probably going to be, good with you. You're going to get whatever it is. Don't have too much expectation. This is not a president that tries to push the American image all over the place and say, because he's doing things that we injure that. So there are things that we can benefit. If we know how to approach him, because now we know the kind of his style, we know the kind of his character, we can do business with him. He did business with us on the Tucano, even this idea of there are only two genders, it will help us because we have a very strong cultural basis that runs against that grade, which was becoming the trend in the Western world, that to the point that we were even afraid that some of the development assistance and aid that would normally come here, they are beginning to try to introduce the fact that we should, be a little bit flexible. So we have quite a bit of a relief from that, and so we can get back to a situation where we are dealing with development partners without having that big elephant in the room that nobody is talking about. So so as a government, that's how to deal with it. Now, as a people, so people who have enough means to go and give birth in America or other stuff. Okay, so save your money, and make your own country great again.
It seems the party is coming to an end, but you'll be surprised, Mbakwe, that there are a number of Nigerians that are really, really head-on, supporters of Mr. Donald Trump. There was a guy in Jigawa who held a big party. Indeed. It's quite a very exciting development, and this next 4 years is going to be a real bumpy ride, and we will feel the impact here in Nigeria too.
Well, I know that Ayo will want to be a part of this party. Ayo.
I would rather, ignore the bumpy ride part, Mr. Akande, because our roads are getting better by the day, so please excuse me on that one. But, the one nexus that we have, between the United States of America today and something that Marco and I, jived about this morning is this medical practice, doctors, leaving the country and medical practice in Nigeria, medical training in Nigeria not getting its rightful place. But speak to this issue. In Abuja, we understand that there's some 3-day warning strike after a 3-week warning to the FCT administration concerning health workers and all of that. So one is concerned about the emigration of doctors from Nigeria, the way the medical practice in the country is, and all of that. It's I don't even know what word to use or how to even frame the question, given that on the one hand we're trying to discourage medical tourism, on the other hand we're not giving as much attention to both medical training and medical practice in the country. Or is it just something that seems like it?
Well, you are right that there are a lot of issues that should bother us, around that topic. The idea of the brain drain, I think it's what the CMDs, the chief medical directors, that made a statement 2 days ago that said that if care is not taken another 2 years, Nigerian hospitals will be virtually empty, coming up with figures that as much as 6,000 doctors have emigrated, in a few years, and all of those, very daring and quite sobering information. Now, what is clear is that we haven't found a right formula to manage this brain drain in the health sector. And it's not only doctors, but the doctors are the head of the team, and so there's a lot of focus on the doctors. So even if we're talking only about doctors, the CMDs have come out to say that we are in trouble. So and it's not just an Abuja situation. The doctors in Abuja just happen to be the ones that are out in the news trying to push the issues. It is a national crisis. Now, we see that Professor Ali Pate, is coming up with some very new initiatives like the Health Fellows concept, which is a very brilliant idea, but clearly we need to pay attention, and in a very urgent manner, in a matter that suggests a national emergency, to the way and manner we are losing the doctors. We have to do something comprehensive about it. We have to do something urgent about it. And if we don't, it's going to be getting worse and worse. And of course, it comes back to the conditions of service, which is extremely poor. Extremely poor.
One thing that's a little worrisome. Yeah, my apologies, Mr. Akande. One thing that's a little worrisome, and I don't know why this comes to mind for me from time to time, and that's the fact that one of the blessings that I think democracy encourages is that democracy, in every National Assembly, every government, there are people of various, diverse, limitless disciplines. We have medical doctors, medical practitioners in the National Assembly, in the presidency, in the federal ministries, and the state ministries all over the place. Do you think those who are in the industry and happen to be in vantage positions of authority, do you think they are as concerned? Because I feel, you and I are we are media practitioners. If we saw something going wrong, we definitely will call attention to it, irrespective of whatever position, and that's something that you did when you were in government. So, do you think the medical practitioners in in positions of authority, vantage positions of authority, are seeing this situation as dire as you are seeing it right now?
Well, so we've had instances where the NMA, which is the Association of Nigerian Medical Doctors, and other agencies have called attention to this problem. I think that those who are in those offices today, they are clearly aware of it. They have called attention to it, but not at the level that addresses the urgency of the problem. And that is what is very clear. This is a national emergency because it's a systemic rot that has come up in that area. So much so that, look, many of the doctors that are on the ground, their eyes is set outside already for the most part, and they're just waiting for the next opportunity. It's a crisis that we recognize, no doubt. It's a crisis that we are aware of, the people inside and the people outside, but we don't seem to appreciate the urgency of it. And thank God for the chief medical directors. They are the ones who said a few days ago that, look, we are not going to have doctors anymore in a question of couple of years. So Ayo, the issue is that people are aware, inside and outside, but the level of the urgency, this is a national emergency, and we have to have a systemic, a whole government, all society approach to deal with it, and deal with it in good time.
Well, still on that issue, again, the issue Maokwe and I, we raised it earlier in the day, where medical students in the University College Hospital, Ibadan, founded in 1952, initiated in 1948, well before Nigeria became independent, and became a doyen of sorts of medical practice, such that people from all over the world came to get medical attention here in Nigeria, in this particular University College Hospital. And now we find that that same University College Hospital and a number of other institutions, because the spokesperson of the protesting students mentioned it, that it's not just UCH that is having this challenge of power supply problems. In a school, a tertiary institution, so many other institutions, they are calling out for urgent attention to it. Who should be doing what? Because these issues, Mr. Akande, you know very well, as we say on the streets, not be today.
Not be today. And this is what I have been trying to call attention to, in many of our engagements, to say that, look, some of the major problems of the day, they are not the problems of the current administration alone, even though now they are responsible. These are problems that have accumulated over the years, especially since 1999. And it is why it's important for all hands to be on deck. I mean, look at the problem of power, for instance. As we are speaking now, two former presidents, former President Obasanjo and former President Buhari, and some other ministers are, they are giving witness in an international arbitration in Paris over the issue of power, the Mambila power project, which was clearly mismanaged by some of the former presidents, clearly. So we have very deep-rooted problems. The time has come, and this is my own take, the time has come for us to have a national consensus that sets aside politics, that sets aside ethnicity, that sets aside regionalism, that sets aside religion, anything that separates us. Let us put it aside and solve some of these problems. Power is one of them. There is no reason, there is no good reason today that we should be dealing with a situation where, a university hospital doesn't have power. Look, like we were talking about UCH, the king of Saudi Arabia used to come for medical checkup in UCH. I know of people when I went to the US who told me, doctors, that they came to do their residency in UCH, in the 60s, in the 70s. And we are losing all of those reputation. We are losing all of those institutions because of a problem that has been on forever. So we have to come together, set aside our differences and say, look, these are problems that we can solve, and these are problems that we should solve with a national mindset, a common mindset. We shouldn't subject it to politics so that we can get out of it. Once we solve it, then we can go back to politics. It's not an opportunity for politics, it's an opportunity for a national consensus. And we've had a national consensus in this country on several issues. We have on rotational presidency, it's a national consensus. The fact that we don't want to go back to the military, it's a national consensus. We need to have a developmental national consensus in this country, and the time to do it is now.
Well, talking about certain differences aside, the president did emphasize that in a meeting that held with Ogoni leaders, and we saw there the governor of Rivers State and also the minister of the FCT and also a number of prominent Ogoni leaders in that particular meeting. What do you think it was meant to achieve? Do you think that would be able to resolve whatever crisis will be in not just Ogoni land, but perhaps the larger River State?
Yeah, and this I'm going to say is something that is an insight that I got because I served in the president. There's a bit of indolence in the way that our system operates. If not, we should have the issue of Ogoni land should have been sorted out. The cleanup, the pace of the cleanup, it should have been sorted out. But because of several other problems, including but not limited to corruption, that is why you still have, after the UN has done a report, we all know what the problems are. The funding is even there. Okay? So what the president is trying to do is that the president wants to ramp up oil production. And we all know that there's quite a bit of the stuff in Ogoni, that if you are able to get Ogoni back online, it will be able to push out. So the man is desperate. He's trying to say, look, we cannot solve this problem if we don't forget the past. But it requires a whole society approach. And we must commend him for bringing everybody together. I even brought Wike and Fubara in the same room and everybody was smiling. So that is the kind of attitude that we need to solve some problems. We must set politics apart just to solve this problem, because the people, after all, they're the ones that are suffering from some of these problems, which arose clearly from poor political leadership. But the way to solve it is to make it non-political. It's governance time. Let's govern. Let's support the people in government if they are honest. Let's put their feet to the fire. Let's call them out when we think they are wrong. But by all means, let us work together.
Your perspectives are always appreciated, Mr. Laolu Akande. We have to thank you so much for your time with us this morning. Mr. Laolu Akande is a former presidential media aide. Well, that's how we wrap it up this morning, this beautiful Thursday morning on Sunrise Daily. Thank you so much for being a part of the production and for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, we truly appreciate your comments, Professor Nakena and Jesus for the Street and Festus Akimboye, among others. Truly appreciate them. Have a wonderful and productive day. I'm Ayo Makinde.